There we go.
Hey, Dr. Siegel, how are you?
Yes, I certainly am.
Let's see. Get my right books.
All right. A couple of things that we're going to do today. And let me get this started because, again, after last time I went and double checked, I have exactly 40 minutes of recording of time to connect, so we're going to make use of every minute. This is the Zoom session for HIS 160. It is the 5th of October. Welcome back. And we are going to first do some review on the quiz 3.5. And one of the things I will tell you is you can feel more relaxed about the midterm, because even though it's a 60-minute quiz with, I don't remember whether there's 60 questions, but multiple choice, true, false, it's that kind. We don't have any fill in the blanks, no essays, no pondering, okay? Because basically, what I'm using a midterm for, have we covered material and are you retaining it? This isn't to say, let's see if I can make these people miserable, okay? I'm not doing that. I don't enjoy that. I don't enjoy being miserable, nor do I like, well, some people. But anyway. Okay. So let's go here.
It's really odd on the midterm on ProctorU. All the tests are at like 10 o'clock at night or later. I messaged them and I'm like, what? It's like, are you guys your AM and PM wrong? And they never got back with me. I don't know.
The thing with ProctorU, which I think is a terrible name anyway, because it brings to mind other phrases.
Yeah, exactly.
A friend of mine is a gastroenterologist. Anyway, that's just one of the many. They have always been kind of not the most responsive group. They try to get back to you, but they don't really answer questions. They say, well, this is the way it is. And you're like, yeah, but what is that way? I've had people who were telling me that the ProctorU was, well, as a matter of fact, I think you were one of them. They first had my midterm listed for the wrong month.
Yeah.
And I went back and double checked my submission for the request, and I had the correct dates in there. They checked and they said, no, it's listed for October. And I'm going, okay, then why was it listed the other way? Somebody must have hit a keystroke wrong. Who knows? But, they'll never admit it. Anyway, so let's do this real quick. I'm going to be giving you some general information. Yes. I can't minimize Zoom while I'm recording. Okay, thank you very much for telling me that. And some of the things we're going to be going over are the immune system. This is for quiz 3.5. So again, review, lymphocytes, leukocytes, the difference between the two. What is the immune system? What's it protecting you from? What isn't it protecting you from? Or the one that always gets my daughter groaning when she hears me doing this in class, the difference between antigens and oncogens. But that's, yeah, I know, they get worse as the class goes on. Basically, the quizzes give me the material I put into the midterm. So they may be phrased differently, but it's going to be basically reviewing the same material. I don't want to, again, try to get you, if I haven't given it on a previous quiz, it wasn't something that I felt was that pertinent to learning what we're doing here. One of the things I would like to stress is the concept of what happened when HIV came into play. You know, because we're looking here, you know, the CD4 T cell is affected primarily by HIV, which opens the door to a whole plethora of infections and cancers and thrush and things that have suddenly cropped up that people were going, we haven't seen this before, which is why the whole concept of HIV and AIDS was so frightening, because no one had any idea how it was transmitted, whether it was airborne, bloodborne. Someone could come in, sneeze, and I come in, a couple of hours later, and I sit in the same chair and I touch the same table. Do I get it? If I have a cut on my finger and I touch the table, will I get it? Nobody knew. So all of a sudden, these regulations and structures started being put in place because, again, as I said in the last session, dentists used to just wash their hands, stick their fingers in your mouth. All of a sudden, they started using gloves. All of a sudden, they started wearing, the masks, the visors. So it was frightening. It was really a very frightening situation. Go over again the reasons that the infection control is a concern. Why do we have the infection control in clinical environments? You want to look at, is it because of we're dealing with sick patients, older patients, diabetic patients who have reduced immune system? Is it because, well, partly it's the law. We should be doing this. Is there a greater possibility of cross-infection in procedures that we do versus what someone else might do? Review again, mode, route, how is it transmitted, the difference between the infection getting into your body and the infection getting to the entrance to your body. Again, my analogy of the road and the car. There are two things, but both of them are needed in order to get something to happen. Let's see what we've got here. I'm just reviewing my notes here. The good old hepatitis epidemic. What I loved was the other day when the commercial came on that they actually have a cure for Hep C, which was the bane of anyone who got it. The director of the medical division for Department of Labor out of Philadelphia, the federal division, he was my immediate superior when I was doing consult work with the Department of Labor, and he had caught Hep C when he was 40 years younger, serving on a ship, and he still had it, and he still had to take precautions. His wife was aware of it, his kids and family were aware of it. It was a life sentence. You got it, you had it. Now they can treat it and cure it. At least that's what the commercial says, but then again, I don't believe all the commercials. Let's see what else we have. My whole proclamation about procedures. You want some type of practice controls put in place, because patterns and systems and procedures are what keep us from falling into bad habits. If we don't follow the training procedure, if we don't follow the work practice controls that are set up, that's when we start having problems and infections. If you have access to water, washing your hands. One of the things that, well, my daughter told me this when she was training as an EMT. She said, you know, they always tell you wash your hands for, and they say 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, you know, all these different things. She said that one of her instructors timed it out. Sing happy birthday to yourself twice while you're washing your hands. That's a little over 20 seconds. Perfect time. Of course, do it to yourself, not out loud, or people think you're crazy. Happy birthday to me. No. Anyway, two main disinfectant and sterilization materials that are used. In our field, cold sterilization is usually the most consistent and the most convenient to use. If we take any of our plastic utility utensils or devices and try to do the steam clean high heat sterilization, they're gone. Other methods may work, but the two most common are glutaraldehyde, and that's usually a 2%, 2.5% solution, and the other is a hydrogen peroxide, which is about a 7.5% solution. There are some stronger, but those are you don't want to go lower than 7.5 on hydrogen peroxide or lower than 2% solution on glutaraldehyde. And the time frame for how long you need to leave it in for disinfection and how long you need to leave it in for sterilization differs between the two. And you should be familiar with the two different time periods. I mean, some say, 20 minutes for disinfection. And some say, 6 hours for 10 hours for sterilization. I know we used the 2% glutaraldehyde, which actually, if you break it down as a chemical compound, is a variation of formaldehyde. So if you're sticking your fingers in, taking the tools out, you're basically embalming your fingers. Not good for your skin. Wear gloves. What I used to do was I just had enough equipment to last me through the day, and then I would, dump the stuff in, and of course, before you dump it in, you clean off any materials, debris, wax, anything that's on it, and put it in so it can actually contact the surface of the device that you're trying to clean. And I just left it there overnight. So we had a good, 10, 12 hours. The stuff was sterilized. All right, now that's basically what I want you to review for the quiz. And as I said, the midterm came from the quizzes. So I'm going to be asking you that material. Also, we're going to be going back to things you covered in previous courses, such as the red circle. I think I may have told you that one of the biggest arguments we had was with a resident in the otology program at the university I did my master's in, because we sent him a carbon copy of an audiogram, and he was really upset because we didn't put the circles in red and the X's in blue. They were all black. And how is he supposed to tell the right ear from the left? Right. And this is going to be a doctor. This is, circles are right, X's are left. I don't care what color they are, but the red and the blue are the standard. But these are the things that you have to look at. The difference between the right and the left bone conduction. To this day, you always have to remember these symbols on the audiogram were designed to consider the patient looking at you. This is why all the medical intake forms have the right on your left, because the patient's facing you. So when the patient says, it hurts here, you just mark, that's where it hurts. So when you're doing that, you're marking where they pointed. You're not trying to transpose. So when you're putting down your bone conduction, the right ear is on the left side of the line because that's their right ear. It worked well for me because stage direction, you're going stage right, stage left versus audience right and audience left. The theater training does help. All right. Now, is there anything in particular that you guys would want to review before going into the quiz, or anything that you can think of to review as far as the midterm?
Let's see. So the FDA and the EPA and the OSHA, you want just broad answers to those?
Because those are the agencies, the Food and Drug Administration. They are not the Food and Drug and Hearing Administration. So they cover everything. We are part of the umbrella they cover. So, what is FDA? Well, in theory, I don't know about this week, but prior to this week, at least, they controlled regulation of food, manufacture, things that are presented to the public to keep us from being given tainted material or being given something that will ultimately be harmful to us. So again, what is that? The EPA, environmental protection. They're supposed to keep the coal sludge from going into the streams where we now fish and then eat the fish, and then we get the lead and toxic materials into us. They're supposed to protect us from that. They may not anymore, but these are things that they were originally designed for. These were not agencies that were devised by the Constitution. These were set up by the government as the need arose. And, we are under the auspices of the FDA and, OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health. They're in control of, the health and welfare of employees and people who are taking care of the employees. When I was working in West Virginia, we also dealt with MESA, which is the Mining Enforcement Safety Act. So we had OSHA, MESA, and it gets to be alphabet soup because they've got all these different agencies. But each, they're all subdivisions of, EPA, FDA. These are the general umbrellas, and that's what we're looking for. If you know that you're under the FDA, okay, that's where you first go. What building do you go to before you decide what room to go in? That kind of thing. Anything else?
Let's see. So the HIPAA, you just want us to know that it's privacy protection for patients and that kind of thing. Is that
HIPAA? Yeah, that's the most common definition of it. It's a privacy issue, but it is the privacy and portability. HIPAA, PP. Portability. So what that means, if you go from one office to another, your records are yours. They are not to be given to anyone else, but if you want them, you can get them. So if you get mad at a doctor and say, to yourself, this guy's not treating me properly, I want to go to another doctor, I want copies of my records. He can't say, well, no, they're my records, I can't give them to you. They're your records. So that's the portability. You can take them. The privacy is He's not going to sell your information or give your information to marketing companies and other things. They leave that to the state driver's license, division. So, oh, he's 55. Let's send him some ARP material. But I loved it when I was in my early 50s, and all of a sudden this stuff started showing up, and I went, "Oh God, I'm officially old." But as a medical provider, as a health provider, we are restricted now. Now, prior to HIPAA coming into play, I never gave that stuff away. Never. Why? I wouldn't want people giving my stuff away. So that's the way I treated it. But there are other people out there who would, call up a company and say, "Hey, I've got a user list of 4,000 names. You want to buy them for marketing?" And they would sell them. And you had doctors' offices that would, somebody wanted some information. They go, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, here, I've got, Harry Simpson's over here. And, oh, he had a really bad case of," well, you can't do that.
You would have thought before HIPAA that would have just been common sense that you don't.
Always remember the definition of common sense. It should really be called uncommon sense because it is not common.
No, that's true.
Okay? People don't think of it. If you're working in a hospital and you're talking to somebody else who works in the hospital, you basically assume, well, we all know this person, but you may know the person as a patient, the other person may know him as a neighbor. But when initially HIPAA came into play, the ridiculous, I guess what we call it, the ridiculousness of it, is you weren't supposed to call the patient in your waiting room by name.
Oh, ridiculous.
Because someone might recognize the name. And I was saying to myself, and I even said this to my wife, I said, wait a minute, they're sitting in the waiting room.
Exactly.
If they know each other, "Hey, Tom, how are you?" He doesn't have to wait until he hears the name. Or if they look and they go, "Gee, that person looks really weird. Oh, well, Harriet Jones, please come up." "Oh, that's Harriet Jones." Okay. I used to get concerned, and this was something that we discussed at one of our state association meetings. We'd get upset when, and I would see the point where patients would get upset. An older patient is sitting in your waiting room. And again, we're going back to my early days when I was in my 20s and 30s. And you would come in and go, "Tom, come on back."
Oh, no, they don't like that.
No. Now, I've been seeing the patient long term, and we're on first, and he calls me Bob, and I call him Tom. Fine. But if it's early on in the relationship, "Mr. Smith, please come back." And you're sitting, and then you're talking, and you go, "Oh, would you mind if I called you Tom?" This is something different. You have to show respect for the patient. And this is part of our training, or it should be, to be able to have respect for the life difficulties and emotional stability of the person we're dealing with. Because we're not dealing with a set of ears that are dropped off. We're dealing with a person. And those ears and the damage of hearing is affecting their relationship with their family, their friends, their work associates. This is having a major impact on their life. If we just treat ears or we just treat hearing loss, we're missing out on a lot of counseling and a lot of success by understanding how it affects. So we have to be open, and that's important. If you're just going into something for sales, go into another field. Or go into a different aspect of it. I'm going to sell to your practice. Okay. I don't have to worry about, whether you had a fight with your family because you thought they said one thing and they actually said something else. When I'm dealing with the patient, well, why are you here? What are you trying to correct? What kind of problems? What stumbling blocks have you found that you want me to work with you so we can correct it, or we can minimize that as a problem? That can become a very, very strong link between you and the patient. And that makes a huge difference, because when they know that you care about what they're doing, they start to care about you trying. They're not going to go, oh, he's just, he goes through the motion. No, you're sitting there and they're saying, well, this happened. And you're going, God, I've never heard of that before. Wait a minute, let me call the company. And you're sitting there and you call. You're not going, well, I'll get in touch with the manufacturer. And they're going home going, yeah, right. Yeah, they're going to know that you do. And the next time when you don't have time during the appointment to call, and you say, I'm going to call them as soon as I get a break, and we're going to find out why that happened, because that doesn't make sense. They're going to walk away with the assumption, he did it before, he's going to do it again. Okay, so these are things that we have to look at.
Okay.
Anything else?
What about, you said quiz 1. I know it's all 3 quizzes. Are we doing stuff like on the syllabus?
No, we covered that. That was basically to see if you read it. Because we basically we have to go nuts and jump through hoops, because the syllabus for each semester or each academic year is presented to us like 2.5, 3 weeks before the course, with sections in red that we're supposed to go in and personalize. Like, here are the grades that we will accept, this percentage for this grade, or I will not accept late submissions after so many days after.
Right.
But it'll just say, when they're submitted, give the number of days or whatever. And we go crazy filling in and looking for all the sections to fill in. Well, if I'm going to work that hard to get that darn thing done, I want to know you read it. That's why we do that. But that also gives you all the guidelines and references for who to contact if there is emotional abuse, sexual abuse, bullying, something like that. So, that's taken into play too. So now you know who to call, how to do it, what to look at, what your options are as far as challenging a grade or challenging what's being done. Yeah, so once we know you've done that, that's not what I'm teaching. What I'm teaching is this course.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. I heard. I don't know which year I heard it on, but I heard it. Okay. God, I mean, going back years and years ago, one of the people in our department at the hospital was a speech pathologist, and at that time, we never wore white coats. I mean, if you were working with a patient who had like a really bad drooling problem or something, they, speech pathologists wore it, but audiologists, we never. So she was helping me with a pediatric case. So we had, she had the child sitting on her lap, and what this kid did was every time she heard the signal and it had changed size because we were doing sound field, she peed.
Oh.
So she went, give me a minute. She got up and she put on a white coat and she came back. But there's a lot of stories. But these are things you will always find a patient. Let's go to the adults section now, where you're getting softer and softer, and they're going, well, how can they shake their head to tell you it's too soft, I don't hear it, And they're only doing it when you're pushing the button if they don't hear it. Okay. You have to be able to interpolate some of their responses, because you will get people that'll just sit there and go, okay, they're not hearing anything. But the ones that do, and then you go down, and when you hit that button, they're giving you a physiological response each time. It may not be the one you told them to give, but you have to be aware enough to take it. This gives you a much more accurate evaluation. And I think, yep, it just gave me the notice here. We were going to be suddenly going again like we did at the last session. Of course, now I have to see what the bottom, continue, okay. But you have to be the one to be aware. Oh, now it's giving me another notice. Oh, there we go. It's a good continue.
Giving you unlimited minutes, it says.
Something like that. But what will happen is you have to be aware. You have to be conscious of what the people are doing. It's like if you're saying a word to the patient on the word list and they say back a word and they have an accent of some kind, but you know that's the word. Someone else might sit there and go, what did he say? Because they've got a heavy accent, but you have an ear, you're used to the people in that area. I was raised in a neighborhood, so I'm pretty good with, Middle European, Central European, Russian, Eastern European, a lot of the Slavic accents, Italian accents. I can usually go along and I know that what they're saying is what they heard according to them through their filter. So you have to know your general population. If we do get cut off, I will say this. You two are the most consistent attendees I've got. I'm happy about that, but it does open it up so we actually have more discussions than just, here's what I'm covering, bye. So we're going to be doing that. And again, I said this to a lot of the other students when we first start. These sessions are done for your benefit. Right. I mean, I could be sitting out on the lanai looking out over the water. We have a lake behind our house, and then trees. We have some non-developed land. It's a what do they call it? Preserve. Relaxing. I don't have to do this, but this is the best way to find out. Is the syllabus going to be on it?
Thanks for asking, Renee.
Yeah, I mean, if nobody asks the question, you don't get an answer. So ask.
And then you're wasting time studying that, and you can
exactly
studying what we need to study, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, time is too precious. That's one of the few things that we can't replace or make up or do over. All right, so I played Uncle Fester. Yeah, it's growing back. I can always do that. I can just let it grow back. Yeah. I might be playing Captain Steubing from, what is it, Love Boat.
Oh, really?
We're doing that at the end of the month. I'm going to be basically impersonating him at a high school reunion. Either that or what's his name from Gilligan's Island? Excuse me, have you seen love anywhere? That kind of. So I may have to shave part back, or I may have to, comb it. Do over. Time cannot be done, and that's something you can stress to patients as well. You notice I always tie it back into the patient. The time that they waste missing part of their life, part of their family, will never come back. When the multiple programs on hearing aids first really started coming into play, I had one gentleman, and we labeled the programs. Program 1 was so he could talk to everybody else. Program 2 had his granddaughter's name on it because she had this little tiny voice. She's this little kid. He loved her to pieces. Couldn't understand a thing she said. Put it on that program, boom. He says the best thing that ever happened to him. That is the kind of advertising that we need in this industry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I see one thing here I wanted to ask real fast. You got on here, what does a HIS versus an audiologist have to do with dispensing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have to be licensed to dispense. Do we have to? I never really quite got. Do we have to refer them? Do they have to have a prescription from an audiologist for these, or can we write the prescription for them?
This is the difference between a hearing instrument specialist and an optician. You have the ophthalmologist, the optometrist, and the optician. The optician cannot do anything without the authorization of the optometrist or the ophthalmologist. An otolaryngologist, ear, nose, and throat, an audiologist, and a hearing aid provider, you have the unique ability to test, prescribe, and fit that an optician does not. That's the difference.
Okay.
So we're kind of like the gal out there in the front that fits for the glasses, but we can actually prescribe them where she can't. She just fits them.
Exactly.
And
they can modify the lenses, they can modify the frames, but they can't modify the prescription unless the optometrist or the ophthalmologist authorizes it. You can.
Okay.
So that gives you greater flexibility, but it also gives you greater responsibility.
Responsibility.
And that's where some of it comes in. I mean, there was a discussion on one of the postings on an audiology page on Facebook. And a matter of fact, Dr. Ms. Krause made a comment after I gave this long tirade about it. There's the training course, the Alan Lowell seminar. You can go for 5 days and boom, you are now, they're touting you can then be prepared to become a dispenser. Well, when you really listen to it, what they're saying is they are going to give you the background, the foundation, so now you can go and learn how to be a licensed dispenser.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went in and said, we always had it where a physician could have his receptionist do the hearing test. He shows, okay, do this. When they hear it, they were in. Okay, fine. And she would mark down the audiogram. Audiologists had no recourse because it was under the auspices of being supervised by the physician. They were under their physician's supervision. And what did that mean? In reality, it was supposed to mean, or in theory, it was supposed to mean that the physician was standing there making sure that they were doing it right. Well, the doctor's not going to waste his time like that. His time's too valuable. So it really came to be accepted that they're in the same office. Well,
that doesn't mean they're doing it right. Just because they're in the same office.
Duh. That's right.
They don't have the knowledge or someone overseeing them.
So, and that's where I brought up OTC has an associate's degree in this field. Missouri requires the associate's degree in order to become a licensed dispenser in the state. Many, many of the states, and you're going to find this when you start doing the next assignment, which is the regulations of these different states, the minimum requirement for many states is a GED and 6 months training.
Idaho is a certificate. That's what I'm going through. I'm not going to go through the whole degree because it would cost me $10,000 extra to go get general education. to
Oh,
basically.
everybody has.
I'm taking all the courses on the, on the hearing, but what it takes to get to the degree is all general ed. And it would be like $10,000 more in another year of my time. And it's like, it's already costing me $10,000.
The state's requirements, if their requirement is you have to have a GED or a high school diploma, 6 months training, and you're licensed. Or 6 months training, you take the exam, and if you pass the exam, the state licensing exam, then you're licensed.
Yeah, we have to take the exam.
Okay? Fine, you still have to take the exam. And you've got 6 months under the supervision of another dispenser, hopefully one that is actually not just in the same building, but is actually making sure you're doing it right. To, well, every time I hit them on the head, their finger goes, okay, yeah. That training experience is what we're trying to instill through this program. These courses are giving you the information, and if you have access to some of the lab sessions, it gives you the hands-on, which is unique for many programs. This gives you the ability to do a better job. But if the state has a very lax requirement, they're going to get lousy providers because it's easy. Right? As I told you, I think it was the last class, one of the people that was working one town over from me, he was storm windows.
Oh, yeah. You said he decided
Did that for a few years, decided he didn't like that because he was outside too much. Bought a hearing aid practice. Now he's inside in a nice air-conditioned office. He had a good business. Well, okay. Now he might be fine. But in the very beginning, I was really uncomfortable with some of the stuff he was doing. It was just this side of being unethical or illegal. So nothing could be done. But it was really awkward to deal with him.
Is that the one that would stick something as the thing, the earbud?
Oh, no. That's the owner of one of the hearing aid manufacturers.
Oh, okay.
Tall guy, white hair. Anyway, his last name is the name of a city in Texas. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. I can get sued. Anyway, but there's a lot of things that are involved with this. You guys have a good attitude because you care and you want to do a good job. Striving to do a good job is the first step, and a big one, for maintaining the right side of a patient. Okay, at this point, unless there's more questions, go have fun. I'll enjoy our next rainy day because our humidity is 94% right now, and it's raining off and on. It's better than a hurricane, but not that much. So, but our lawn looks great. Anyway, have a good day. I will be talking with you. I'm probably going to be setting up another Zoom session. It may be at a different time. I'm going to try to see if maybe I can get a few more people have access, and we'll see what happens there, but I'll try to announce it earlier.
Okay.
One quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the exam, the quiz, the 3.5, when is that due? I haven't looked at the Canvas yet.
I think it's due
this weekend.
Is it the 8th?
Yeah, I think it's the 8th.
Okay. And then the midterm starts next week?
It starts the 10th through the 15th.
Okay. And it is
I always try to give enough of a window. And one of the reasons I proctor the midterm rather than the final is a lot of times when you get to the end of the semester and you don't know what happened as far as what you're going to be doing for registering for the next semester until you get your grades. And and plus, if second year students, it's like, just get it over with. So, so I usually proctor midterms,
Yeah.
and we'll get there. But yeah, it's and if you look at the calendar, they should be posted. I'm going to be putting the second half of the course due dates. I'm going to be putting all those in because I wanted to see how we were doing on this. Because just arbitrarily putting up every 2 weeks, it's never worked.
Right.
I prefer
So,
news, yeah.
yeah. All right. Have a good weekend. Stay
Hey.
dry. Stay healthy.
You too. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Talk to you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.